Have you heard the old saying, what got you here might not get you there? We are going to talk about 4 areas your advisor should have on their radar so that they're going to help maximize your wealth.
We picked 4 of the topics out, and what we're going to be talking about is really kind of a couple main topics that your advisor should be thinking about and hopefully applying to your situation to kind of help maximize everything.
Yeah, some of the things we'll talk about, I feel they're important, right? And depending on what stage you are in your accumulation or even your retirement, some of it may apply to you, some of it may not. So one of them would be your advisor ignores the big picture, and maybe it's not even the big picture. Maybe it's like an encompassing picture where we're talking about taking care of the investments, but who doesn't do that? If you're working with a wealth manager, everyone's doing that. Everyone, right? 99% of the people in that, wealth, helping take care of your wealth, a financial advisor taking care of the investments. But what about taxes, estate planning, business strategies if you're a business owner? So let's talk about that. My whole thing is that you have to align all of these things or understand every aspect so that we're not missing any opportunities, because most times you can't rewind the clock,
right?
Or make an irreversible financial mistake. And it sounds worse than it is, but like sometimes you can't undo it, right? You made a move and you can't undo it, or you missed an opportunity. So that's area number 1. What are your thoughts, Dee?
Yeah, I'd say, just in working with my clients, I'd say this kind of aspect of our business is something I get positive feedback on all the time. Just like Tony said there, it kind of taking an all-encompassing picture in someone's financial situation instead of just looking at the investments. And I think I touched on it even last week. If your entire retirement plan is just to try to beat, some benchmark, whether it be the S&P 500 or otherwise, that's not much of a plan, right? Because it's great to make money, and obviously it's an important part of everything. But if you outperform the market this year by 1%, is that really changing, your lifestyle in retirement?
Right. All right. So like one of the things that always pops in my head is like, obviously the investments are important. How did that advisor get to those investments? Whether it's individual stocks, maybe they're doing ETFs, mutual funds, whatever they may be doing to help you accumulate growth. How did they get there? What was their research? And I feel that we are extremely fortunate to have a highly competent investment team, because if we make a move, whether it's right or wrong, they have a reason why they did it.
Yep.
Like there is a fall on the sword moment, or hey, yeah, we made the right move and that's what we're here to do, right? So there's that component in that, and then there's taxes, right? I again, fortunate to have a CPA in-house that if we have a tax strategy, I don't have to go searching throughout the neighborhood looking for somebody. Can you answer this question? Can you answer this question? And then wait a week, a month, or whatever, not even get called back to answer something. Like we have, we're fortunate enough to have these assets available to us so that we can take care of our clients' needs. And those 2 things resonate with me the most. And then, we can also, the big picture is as our clients get older, and just we get older in general, like the mentality for legacy planning changes. I would say a lot of people are like, I'm taking care of my kids enough. I'm spending every last nickel, right? Whatever that might sound like. But honestly, with the market, the way it has been the last 3 years, we're in uncharted territory. Market's up 20% 3 years in a row, basically. That's never happened. I think it's been up 20% 2 consecutive years, like 4 times in the last 100. I don't think it's ever happened where it's up almost another 20, right? So with that being said, there's just more money, and we're starting to look at it. It's like, hey, sometimes like I don't know if I can spend all this because it's not in their DNA to spend money. So like now the talks are a little bit deeper. Is like, what assets or what accounts are we designing for the next generation so that's designed for them and not the client, right? It's the next generation of client. So those are some of the things that's a big picture. Like, it's like step back and look around you, right? Not just say, all right, I need to pick the next big stock, to keep my client impressed. Like, no, it's not about that. Like, as you said, if we are missing the benchmark by 2% plus or minus, but I'm missing tax strategies or even tax strategies for the next generation, that's worth it's what at the end of the day, it's what falls at the bottom of your checking account, right? After taxes, after like all of these things. So, all right, I'm off my soapbox.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, right now, right, we're at the end of the year. Tax strategies I'm talking with my clients about. Roth conversion strategies. Yeah. Sometimes people, especially in early retirement, there's good Roth conversion opportunities. Not for everyone, but that's why we have the plan. There's the additional senior standard deduction.
Yeah, that's changed a little bit.
So
right?
Those are tax laws we're trying to stay on top of. The tax loss harvesting on non-qualified accounts. These are all things outside of the 1040, right? There's only so many things you can do at the end of the year when you're actually doing your taxes. Yeah. But the tax strategies can be even more impactful than a good investment strategy sometimes, honestly.
Right, and some of the strategies are like, hey, I'd like to realize some additional tax this year. Are you comfortable with it? Because at the end of the day, I always say that paying taxes is a penalty of success.
Yep.
So something went right if we're paying taxes, whether you got a job, you got an investment that paid out, whatever it may be. And to be ready for next year would be, maybe we need to like reshuffle before the end of the year. So tax loss harvesting is part of that, but like there's not too many losses to harvest.
That's true.
So all right, so what can we tone down, like take some chips off the table, realize the tax so that we can be ready for whatever it may be, put that into dry powder, ready for the next investment, maybe invest in things that are undervalued compared to the collective whole market. So those are things that our investment team is exceptional at right now. So, all right.
Number two.
Yeah, number two. What do we got, D?
Number two. So does your advisor have a strategy for major economic events?
Right.
So, this is, I'd say this is probably one of the most important things that an advisor does is to help pull emotion off the table, at emotional times, right?
Yeah.
And these major economic events, whether it be, COVID, whether that's not an economic event, but,
But it was huge, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, obviously it was, had major economic impacts as well. With the lending crisis, the global financial crisis back in 2008, these are things that no one really sees coming in the mainstream. So how you react is extremely important.
Yeah, and you know what? It doesn't. I know it's like major economic events, but it could just be major world-changing events. So think about back in the 2000s to 2008, like the internet, right? It developed. It became a thing, right? So like that was an event. Now we're in this AI revolution, right? And how much is too much? Is it a bubble? Is it not a bubble? Is it the infancy? Like, is it got a ton of room to run so that where do we stand? But it's almost like if you hitched your wagon to AI stocks and that's all you did, you probably did very well. But all it takes is maybe one bad earnings call from Nvidia,
right,
and that house of cards falls quickly.
Yes,
I'm not predicting that. I'm just saying be aware of it, right? Again, going back to even our first thing, the big picture, like hey, it's okay to, if you made a lot of money, it's okay to take some chips off the table,
Absolutely.
recalibrate. If we have something that has gone parabolic, there's something that hasn't, right? So either that parabolic item is going to come back down to earth, or everything's going to catch up to it. So, and then also, then we do start taking a look at a lot of different events. So like COVID, that was an event where I know our investment team got extremely active, and where it was to the point where we went into like maybe 15 to 20% in cash in that general area, because we didn't know what the next move was. We had to let it play out. But I know that there were some stocks that are not going to participate in a lockdown, like Boeing. Right. I always use this example. Boeing was one of those companies where they were having a problem keeping a particular plane in the sky, a 737 MAX, and then they weren't going to be any planes in the sky because we were going lockdown, right? So an example of a stock that we sold and didn't buy anything with it. Just sit tight and see how is this going to play out? Is this lockdown a couple days, a couple weeks, couple months? What did that look like? And it ended up being stay at home. So the stay at home items then became part, the main part of the portfolio, the Zooms of the world, and the internet commerce place like Wayfair items, stocks like that. Then you get the tariffs. The tariffs really socked a lot of stocks, but there were some that didn't really heave. So if they didn't go down, that was our team's idea to hey, we're gonna these stocks did not go down as much as everything else. Let's sell part of that and buy some of the stuff that went down for no reason at all.
Right.
Just because of a headline. Because the backbone of the company is still strong, and those are the active management moves that our team will make. Same thing with the big beautiful bill, like you mentioned before. Hey, what tax strategies are available, because they changed mid-year, right? And there's going to be a lot more that come into play next year. So again, that's why having the CPA in-house, that's why having the investment team in-house, those are all we're fortunate to have that. That's strategic. So, and then what is your guy doing, or guy, gal, whatever it is, what are they doing for the research part of this? What tools do they have at their exposure? What are they reading that no one else is? Because everyone can hop on Google and Amazon, or Yahoo and
Instagram.
Get your economic.
If you want to buy some insurance.
Yeah, I mean, you get you could use X as your, as your research for how to invest. Well, guess what? It's going to end up learning your algorithm and telling you a bunch of stuff you want to hear.
Right.
It doesn't want to tell you the stuff you don't want to hear. So that's kind of the way I view some of that stuff. D, how about you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's during those major economic events that it is imperative that you have an overall strategy, right? So, like Tony was talking about before, when people aren't taking as much out of their retirement accounts as they could, maybe because they built up a nice income strategy with some income annuities and some other tools, and what that does is it leaves the remaining assets with a longer time horizon. Maybe we're managing more for the next generation, so we can get a little bit more aggressive. But understanding your overall situation and then managing towards that is just incredibly important. And everyone is different out there. Everyone has a different situation, different income needs, different asset levels. So that's why that individualized plan is so important. But having someone who's kind of been through the down markets and the unexpected things, it's one of the most important things that you can do is make sure you're sticking to your guns, making sure you're sticking to your strategy during the down times. And we've talked about it before. Tony mentioned it a few minutes ago. Three big years in a row. There's not a lot of negative data out there. I know we got some negative jobs numbers, but
we're still under the historic low for unemployment.
Yes, we are.
So or the historic average. I'm sorry. Just
but
letting you know.
when we've bubbled up so far, I'm not saying that the market's about to crash. Just our antennas are up a little bit more. So, understanding that, taking a few chips off the table, not getting overly greedy, locking in a little bit of profit, all those things as part of your overall investment strategy, extremely important for success.
Yep. And the next topic we're going to talk about is your advisor isn't aligning your portfolio with your life and your lifestyle. So whether you're a business owner, right? Think about that, right? I have a business. I'm ready to, hang up my hat and liquidate my business. Well, there's a lot that comes along with that. Taxes. How do you navigate through that? Are there tax strategies to, mitigate the big tax bill that would come along with getting a big check from liquidating a business? What happens when you get the money? What's the strategy to put that money to work? And because it might be a lot more money than you've ever had, as you're a business owner, you might be cash flow rich, but you didn't have asset rich, right? There's a new different level. And then lifestyle, man, like you were used to going to work and building a business, like there might be a time where hey, you have to email yourself because you ain't getting any more emails, right? Can you handle the transition from being a business owner to being retired or moving on or doing something, a little bit less, less involved as being a business owner? So that's just one area. Could be changing jobs, family dynamic. But what do you think, D?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like we talked about last week, everyone's situation is different. So just building a cookie cutter portfolio where, it may or may not be taking into account everything that's going on in your life it is an issue. I've seen that a lot with people, that I'm just talking to for the first time, kind of just coming in with, the old 60-40 type portfolio, even though their age might not be appropriate for that, or they might need an income stream or whatever the case may be. It's imperative that you have not only your income set up for retirement, but also your long-term asset planning. Like we talked about last week, there are things that can pop up in the market that maybe no one's expecting that can cause it to go off the rails. And the last thing that you want in retirement is to have to adjust your lifestyle because the stock market went down.
Right.
I haven't necessarily been having that conversation with a lot of clients, but just reminding them that the market doesn't go up by 20% every year. Right. Obviously all the plans have been looking great. They've all been, increasing their Monte Carlo scores. So everything's going well. But just kind of reminding people, hey, it doesn't always go like this. So, it's great that we're ahead. But, maybe we take a few chips off the table and move it here.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you ever been on a bridge and you're like, oh my God, it's moving, right? It's yep. Heaving. Like, oh my God, thing's going to snap. It's going to snap in half, as an ex-engineer of some sort, but, things cannot be completely rigid. Right. You don't build a financial plan with it just giving you a 7% rate of return and watch it go straight up. Right. It's not a linear event. It's dynamic. So, if we have a negative year, we have to look back, be like, hey, the last 3 years, it needs to heave. It needs to let off steam. It needs to recalibrate to move forward. So we have to understand that. But honestly, at the end of the day, I say this a lot to a lot of clients, is that when you're working with me, I am now your personal CFO. You can run any financial question by me. Whether you're going to buy a house, how do I structure this? I got an existing house, I want to buy a new house or build a house. How does the dynamic of the money work? And there's several ideas that I've worked with over the last several years for clients to navigate this so that we mitigate taxes, we keep expenses low, and bridge the gap between moving from that old house to the new house, right? I've just had a conversation with a client the other day, where it's like, hey, my current job, I'm not looking to change a job. But the way they structure it, they're locking me in, Tony. They're giving me restricted stock units, and they don't vest for 2 years. And my commissions, they give me 70, 20, 10. Like they over 70 the first year, 20 the next, and 10. Like I have I felt like even if I got a new job offer, I don't know if I could or should take it. And I'm like, that is a good problem to have that opportunity. But that's why I'm also here. Let's sit down, crank numbers. Let's figure out, hey, what would you be leaving on the table in stock units or commissions? What's the new place offering? I'm like, you don't have to go through this decision tree by yourself. Bring in the outside perspective who doesn't have what's the word I want to use? I'm taking a little bit of the emotion out of the equation.
Yep.
Right. I'm going to be more numerical about unbiased, but also like factual and numerical about it. Like, here's the numbers, and okay, if you're comfortable leaving these numbers, this amount of money on the table, there's no reason why I don't see not to do it.
Right.
So that's just an example, right? So again, aligning to make sure they're with your lifestyle, and that's why when you work with somebody, view them as your personal CFO.
Yep.
All right,
for sure.
Last one. Your advisor is a generalist and not a specialist. So think of it this way, like I'm. For anyone that works at the bank or whatever, I'm just going to use an example. I'm not pointing fingers, but if it's funny, anytime a certain amount of money lands in my checking account, I start getting calls from my bank. They're like, hey, just let you know we're here, we can help you, whatever. Right. And I'm like, okay, cool. Obviously don't know what my occupation is, but that's fine. They're doing what they're supposed to do. But the things that I see when I work with somebody who has just been working with the bank, it's like, man, it's just ETFs, mostly mutual funds. There's no planning behind it. Like, they're a generalist. Like, hey, you need this money, let's get it to work and have it do something rather than earn, a half a, fraction of a % in your checking account. I get that. But do they still do they know anything else about you, right? They're just making general recommendations and not being special about the recommendations that might be significant to you and impactful for you. Just an example.
Yeah, that's, again, unfortunately for the people who are working at the bank, and it's not a bad thing, but that is the perfect example, right? Is just someone who has limited information about you, knows how much money you have at that bank, and then they're going to, put you in some more, higher level generalized investments as well, and kind of call it a day. That is fine, as you're, in the accumulation phase, and maybe that's only 5% of your money, and you don't want to spend a lot of time on it now. But as time moves on, that money and those investments, they need to be more specific to your situation, especially as you're getting towards retirement or even in retirement. All those assets have to work in different ways, and they're all specific to your situation.
Yeah. If you're interviewing somebody or working with somebody who's just doing investments, again, they might be more of a generalist because there's actually a lot more things going on in your lifestyle than just your investments. We talked about that a couple times already. So here's one other thing. When something happens or something you have a question about your finances, listen to how they respond, right? Are they confident in their solution or their answer? Or are they talking in circles?
Right.
Right? Like, how do they respond to your, to your question or your situation or whatever you bring to the table? That is key too, right? And that is something that I always tell people, and this is kind of, a little bit off the beaten path, but when we're working with somebody and they're retiring, we got to do the rollover calls to move their 401k to an IRA. and we'll make those phone calls to the custodian, Fidelity or whatever. And how many times I've like got through the call and I'm like, okay, we have enough information. The reason I hung up on them and didn't complete the task of moving any money while the client's on the line is because I didn't trust who I was talking to. Like something didn't sound right. I'm pretty sure it doesn't work that way. I got to hang up and stop talking to Bob, and I need to talk to Sue. Right. Like I need to talk to Sue. I just hope Bob doesn't answer the phone again. Right. That's what I'm talking about. Like if something doesn't make sense, it's time to, ask different questions or ask those questions to somebody else.
Yeah, if you're talking to your advisor and he sounds like Kevin Stefanski in a post-game conference, you're in trouble. Yes. No. We got it taken care of.
Glad you asked that, but moving on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into specifics right now, but your money's safe.
Yeah, dude, that'd be funny. Like, hey, spit out an answer that Stefanski would do at a press conference about your money. Holy cow, that dude wouldn't have a job, yet he still has one for the Browns. Imagine that.
Poor Stefanski. He's been through it here in Cleveland.
Everyone has been through it here.
Yep.
All right, man. All right, take us home, D.
All right, well, hope everyone out there has a happy new year. We'll be back next week, as always. But thank you for listening this year and to this episode. If you guys, continue to send in those comments, ideas for a show, shoot them over to info@swpconnect.com, and we'll talk to you next week.
The opinions expressed in the podcast are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any investment, legal, financial, or tax strategy. It is only intended to provide education about the financial industry. Please consult a qualified professional about your individual needs.